I'm Aaron Graber with Ventrac, and today we are on our own property, outside showcasing wet ground conditions. It is early spring in Ohio. We're just coming out of winter. This is our first really nice warm day. It's about 70 degrees and sunny. As you can see behind me, the grass is starting to green up an awful lot. We've had a few days where we flirted with coming out of winter and gotten just enough temperature up to start the grass in the process of growing, but it hasn't really grown any yet and it doesn't need cut. That will, however, happen pretty quickly here after we get a couple more of these days. The problem we face here is that we are just coming out of winter, so freeze thaw has been happening recently, and there's a lot of moisture built up in the ground. Just like many parts of the country, Ohio has very clay-based soils, so the moisture that is in the ground is not going to leave immediately out of winter. And that poses us with this problem right here. So where I am actually standing is right on the edge of a puddle on our property out next to our training facility that exists this time of year and also in fall time every year. So what you see is standing water in some spots, and in other spots you see grass poking through, but basically what's underneath it is so wet that it might as well be standing water. And if you walk into here, your foot would actually sink far enough in to, cover your boots in mud and basically suck you into the puddle. You can see through the center of this where somebody actually drove through. This is a training facility, so we get a lot of operators. A lot of people don't know what this area is like. Somebody drove through here with single wheels, and they didn't get stuck, thankfully, but what they did do is leave tracks. You can see them kind of through the center here. So it's important to say, even with single tires, our tractor is able to handle these conditions and not stop you from working. But because of the dual wheels, and we'll get to that in a second and go over this tractor, we actually have the ability to operate really well in conditions like this. The important thing to note here is this is pretty representative of a lot of properties. If you look around, the grounds on this facility are 95% ready to go. So this big flat wide open area, you could put a zero turn out here, you could put a wide area mower from any manufacturer and be probably okay. Of course, we maintain this facility with Ventrac because we prefer it over anything else. But there are spots like this, even though the rest of the facility is okay, spots like this that can stop you dead in your tracks. And the problem with that is you can basically bury your machine and then spend all day digging it out, creating more damage to the property just because one little area has this problem. So you don't need a massive torrential rainstorm, you don't need crazy flooding, you don't need some unforeseen circumstance to have this issue. This can happen in any spring, just average mowing, just a weird spot in the property that can swallow up your machine like that and pose real problems for you. Where we see this the most in professional contractor land and municipal land is properties that are similar to this in those seasonal changes where they basically just can't mow an area and they have to let it go, either string trim it or let it grow up taller. You'll see that oftentimes in Ohio in springtime. You'll see a property that's like 80% mowed, and then there'll just be a spot that's like a foot tall of grass because they can't get in there without their machine getting stuck, and they also can't risk pulling it out, making tracks. So they just let it go. Of course, that looks terrible. It's bad for the grass because when they do go back and mow it, they have to wait till it's so dry that the grass really can't handle being cut that short without being damaged because you're taking it too close to the roots at that point. And we don't face those problems at all with the Ventrac because we can just keep going no matter what these conditions are like. I will drive this tractor through an area on the edge of here to see, as you can drive through with the standing water, what those results look like and show you what it's all about on this machine. So let's go over here to the tractor itself. As you can tell, we have dual wheels equipped on this machine. This is a 72-inch finish deck, and there's a few things that make this tractor suitable for working in conditions like this. Because of the dual wheels and the low pressure that we run in them, the actual ground pressure of the machine is very, very low. Less than, in some cases, a tracked skid loader, which obviously you'd never use to mow something like this. But more importantly, the dynamic ground force is even lower yet. And that's something you can't really measure because the flex frame of the tractor allows these tires to remain consistent with their ground pressure, and you don't get those weird spikes like you would with a straight frame machine. So the machine with its flex frame is already set up to do really well, and then we have a couple tricks too that help us along the way. So we have what we call weight transfer over here on the side of the tractor, and right now we're in weight transfer setting 0. I will actually move this to probably 3 or 4, and what that'll do is transfer some of the ground force from the attachment to the front wheels of the tractor, give it a little bit more traction. And that's the second part of all of this. We have the light profile to float through, and just like a lot of machines do, a lot of machines are even lighter than we are, But what they can't do sometimes is not break traction, and that destroys areas like this. If you drive into this area, half of what causes problems is when you start to spin a little bit. As soon as you start to spin, you're doing a couple things. You're ripping the roots out of the grass, and you're destroying the turf, and then you're also getting yourself deeper stuck in the mud. If you can just push through without your tires actually spinning, then you have a much better chance of protecting the area and actually getting the work done without burying your machine. Because of that, we run an all-terrain tire. As you can see here, it's a little bit more aggressive than a standard turf tire. But since the machine has the FlexFrame, like I talked about earlier, and it articulates to turn, we don't have tearing of the wheels, we don't have locking differentials or anything like that, and it keeps these tires from ripping up grass in normal circumstances. So it's the best possible combination of being able to actually drive through here and not destroy anything. So I'm gonna do a demo of this, and I'm gonna start the tractor up, put the deck in float, and I'm not gonna mow because we're really not gonna be cutting anything, but I'm just gonna drive through like I would be mowing, and you'll see what this will look like. So observe as I go through, and we'll show you how it works. All right, let's go for a walk. So that was actually pretty revealing. We're gonna show exactly what we dealt with here. On this side, this is obviously the worst part. This is about absolute worst case scenario. You would definitely not be able to drive through this with most turf equipment. And that's what we hear a lot of times too, is, well, nobody actually mows when it's wet. Okay, but it's not wet, most of the property. But we do have a spot. And a lot of times you want to be able to just go the entire property. You don't want to leave stuff undone. You're working on a customer's property, or you're in a publicly visible space, and we are mowing, we will be mowing. This is like worst case scenario. And we were able to just drive right through it. There's some spots that, as you could tell, grass wasn't growing anyway because it's been so wet lately. And so it's basically dirt only. And we will need to come back, patch that up, plant some grass seed, but that's no difference whether we would have mowed through it or not. You can see we drove straight through. We didn't cause any more ruts than we had before. We were able to not break traction the entire time, but the more important thing is this direction. I want to show you this. So you got to pick your way through here. It's a little difficult to even walk on without doing damage. But over here, from where the tractor was first parked to where I started my run, I started driving the other direction just to get staged, and this grass was completely green. Didn't look wet at all from the top, and as I'm driving through it, you can see I'm basically leaving tracks down to the dirt level. And again, I haven't made any ruts, but you can see where I'm driving through because it's so wet underneath. That's a spot that would reach up and grab you if you're on a two-wheel drive machine or a straight frame machine with turf tires. You'd be mowing along, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see anything different, and then boom, you could be stuck even on flat ground. We've seen that a time or two where people have emailed us photos after they've gotten their new Ventrac of mowing through an area, and also prior photos of using a different machine where they've been stuck. People have literally been stuck on flat ground. No rise, no nothing, no standing water, nothing to see, just cruising along, and then all of a sudden they break traction and boom, they start spinning and they're completely and totally dead in the water. This is an area like that, and it would reach up and grab you. Could be a problem, especially for new operators who don't know the terrain really well, the property, don't have a really good understanding of the property they're working on, or if it's a route that they're running and it's not a route they're familiar with. So keep an eye on areas like this. Again though, the Ventrac drives through it absolutely no problem, and 2 days from now, once the grass has grown up a little bit, you won't see any of this mud here. There won't be any damage to the property whatsoever. Of course, we've got plenty of experience talking about this. We know what everyone will say. Yeah, but that Ventrac doesn't mow around the trees as fast as my zero turn or whatever other piece of equipment, and that's true. If I went around here and I planted 30 different trees, you'd mow this faster with a zero turn, all things considered, when it's dry and doesn't get stuck. So we want to be real clear. Zero turns have their place, other mowing equipment has its place. Certain things are better at certain jobs than others. Most of the guys that have a Ventrac for this specific purpose also have a fleet of Zs. They have a dozen Zs as well that they use on the daily, and they use those in the smaller properties, on the really tight properties, for the maximum speed and efficiency. But then when conditions get like this, the Ventrac runs the route because it's the only piece of equipment that can do it and keep them running. Also, it's worth mentioning that this doesn't stop at mowing. We have all of the different attachments available for the Ventrac, and you're not just mowing in these conditions. You can use the Ventrac to tackle all of the other projects without destroying the turf that you love so much. That concludes today's public service announcement about wet turf mowing. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something. If you have any questions about operating the Ventrac in situations like this, be sure to ask us. We'd be happy to let you know how it works. We have other video clips we can send you to as well that show you what its performance is like in conditions like this. And ask around. Talk to other people who are running this equipment in this type of condition and ask them what they think of it. I think it'll be pretty evident really quickly that this is exactly what you need if you suffer from ground conditions like this. So thanks for watching the video. If you have more questions about the equipment or any of the other attachments, be sure to check us out at ventrac.com, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and watch all the rest of our videos. Thanks for watching.